To the front pages, where you've seen one of them already. Here's some more. The Sunday Times says 12 people face jail over hacking, and a picture of the Duchess of Cambridge, Kate Middleton, as was there. She's one of two women dominating the front pages, the other being Rebecca Brooks. The Observer, Ashdown, I warned Number 10 about the huge danger of hiring Coulson. Paddy Ashdown, the latest of the people coming forward, saying that he'd warned David Cameron about that. The Independent on Sunday, War of the World, about the future of the News International. There's the other woman dominating the front pages, Rebecca Brooke there. And the Mail on Sunday, Blair bid to silence MP who exposed Murdoch. We should say that Tony Blair says that's not true. Kate Middleton again. And there's Rupert Murdoch. Murdoch's troubles only get worse, says Scotland on Sunday. A rather odd story in a sense. It says the Church of England is threatening to pull millions from the News Corp over scandal. I think many of us didn't realise that the Church of England was spending millions of pounds in newspapers. Anyway, Fraser Nelson and Amanda Platell, welcome to you both. Thanks for coming in. Fraser, you've been a columnist for a long time on the News of the World. So let's start with you and that final historic edition.
Yeah, I've got the very first issue of the News of the World up on my wall at home, and it's funny to be holding the very last one here. And I think they've done it brilliantly. They've just shown all these incredible front pages, which have kind of punctuated British history, actually. When you walk into the News of the World, they've got them all up on the wall. And it just reminds you that this is the most successful newspaper the world has ever known. Nobody's, at its peak, it sold 8 million. Nobody's ever done more than that. And it's funny, when newspapers die, normally they run out of readers, run out of money. This is really quite something else.
This has never happened before, that a proprietor has closed a successful newspaper.
No, because there's always the view that you can basically cleanse brands, you can change editor, change ownership, bring them back again. So it just shows how serious that Rupert Murdoch takes this. He sees it, obviously, as a kind of threat to his global empire, and he wants to send a message to everybody in Beijing, etc. If you screw up like this, you will pay the price. But nobody can quite believe the commercial audacity. But
he's not a sentimental fellow, is he?
Clearly not.
Well, clearly not. But the funny thing is, it's difficult, certainly as a journalist, not to be sentimental about, this incredible newspaper and all the good that it's done, which is something that nobody will listen to at the moment. Such are the scale of the sins of the private investigators. And, for those journalists who were involved in the paper, this is the great irony. All these bad things were done by the men in raincoats, the PIs, who were at the end of a phone, who would do all sorts of methods.
But also authorised by the people right at the top,
yes.
Many of whom are still there,
and that was
unlike the journalists.
Yeah, that was a huge mistake for which the newspaper has paid with its life.
Amanda.
It is incredible. If it's true that there's £100,000 that was going to these private investigators every year. I mean, as a former newspaper editor and executive, you don't just, £100 has to go through the books, it has to be seen by executives at some level. Who they are, who knows. But it is incredible. And just looking at the front pages, I thought it was quite sweet. Colin Myler, the editor, whom I've worked with on and off for 20 years, who is a very fine man and a very honest man. When we couldn't find him on Today newspaper, he'd usually be down at the local Catholic church saying Mass. I mean, he's so clean, that guy. But he's written this lovely obituary to the paper, I guess what you have to call it. And he said an advertisement for our first ever edition, it announced that the News of the World, as the novelty of nations and the wonder of the world, as worthy of the mansion as the cottage. And that is incredibly true. I mean, that's one of the things about News of the World, is that so many people who are very influential, read it for choice as well as when they were in it.
What jumps out at you when they've reprinted the first page here, it's inside, and it gives you the mission statement, which was exactly the same as it is today. A paper, it says, which will have enough intellectual calibre to engage the rich because they want to know simply by the sheer number it sells amongst the poor. This is the kind of paper they want to be read in Buckingham Palace and down the pub, and it still was.
Yeah. And it actually was.
What I was struck by, going through it, was there's not a great deal of contrition about the recent events, and a sort of sense. I mean, of course, it's written for their readers. But it also seemed to me to be, in a sense, it was written for Rupert Murdoch, saying, look what we've achieved, look what you're killing off, remember us.
Yeah, there will be. I mean, just think how high the emotions were running there. These are journalists who had nothing to do with the sins committed. They spent the last 5 years, Colin Myler had completely making sure everything was right, and they pay the price for it. So you can imagine the emotions as they were putting that paper together.
Yes. Lots of interesting coverage, I'm going to say, elsewhere in the press of this.
You have to give Carol Malone, who's their star columnist, she's written her whole... Normally you only get to write about the death of a father or a mother in your column.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've ever read about the death of a newspaper. And she puts it really succinctly here. She says, this red-top monolith has been a life force in Britain journalism, and love it or hate it. No politician, no crook, no pervert, no celebrity, no corporation has ever been able to ignore it. And that was true. And that's why, despite the terrible things that happened and the ghastly things over Millie Downer, the hacking, it is a sad day for...
OK, now, I said, you said that journalists are sentimental, and so journalists are, but also it's a ruthless trade, and you can pick that up from some other front pages.
Look at this. This is incredible, because of course you have suddenly there are 7 million readers out there who some of them will want another Sunday newspaper. So what does the Daily Star do? Wills to be Beckham's godfather. Oh yeah. The People, they've got Wills and Kate's We Want 3 Children. So they've got a private interview with them about that. All of them, Cheryl Cole on the front. Sunday Mirror, don't go back to Cheryl Cole again, big Harry Potter promotion, and what they're all doing is doing that classic red top, a celebrity, a bit of royals, and a whacking big offer to try and get the readers in.
Well, there are 7 million readers up for grabs now. The question is, where will they go? But the funny thing is, in America, when they shut newspapers, the readers have just gone.
Yeah,
and
often they don't go anywhere
it
else.
is possible, our industry is in contraction. It could well be that this is simply accelerating this one-way reverse.